It is Radio Row Day 2. What bigger of a guest can we get than
A
Field
lot.
Yates from ESPN? Rolling up in some killer Jordans. I love
thank
those. Those are awesome. They're definitely
Picked out by my wife.
Oh, hey,
No surprise, right?
yeah, there you go. Exactly. But Field, thank you so much for joining us. And,
Thanks for having me.
and you're in Las Vegas.
It's good to be in Las Vegas, a very different part of the country where I normally am. I was expecting, coming from Connecticut, that there might be a bit better weather, but I have also learned from being in various different cities for Super Bowls, you never know what you're going to get. The last time these two teams played, which was only 4 years ago in the Super Bowl, was in Miami. I showed up to the Super Bowl in a T-shirt because it's Miami, right? It was 80 degrees during the day. And at that stadium down there, if the light, obviously the sun sets during the game because it starts at 6:30 local time. That sun setting totally by the end of the game, I had tucked my arms into my entire shirt. It was so cold. So I've learned to always overpack when it comes to layers here.
Phil, I just want to know what year for you at ESPN and how many Super Bowls now for you to cover?
This is I've been a little over 11 years at ESPN. A little over 10 years? 10 or 11 years. I should know that better. And then I've been very fortunate to be at, I believe, 12 or 13 now Super Bowl weeks in a variety of different capacities. So don't take this week for granted ever. And I just love it. The energy is unmatched. It's really cool to see basically the entire sports world descend upon a city each year.
What is your biggest storyline from this game this weekend?
I think when you're sort of zooming in or zooming out, I should say, a lot of my work is at the 30,000 foot level, right? I love doing, local radio with the teams that are playing, and the Chiefs might be more focused in on can our backup linebacker hold up against Christian McCaffrey if need be in coverage, right? Whereas the reality when covering the league from sort of a national level large is that this is going to be a defining moment one way or the other. In the case of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, it's 3 out of 4 back-to-back for the first time in 20 years, and the chance to kind of cement his status as maybe the second greatest quarterback ever. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, while they're really good and, there are a lot of young players on this roster, when will Kyle Shanahan get over the hump here? And for this team, while it's great that, they're back for the second time in 4 years, they can obviously keep this thing rolling here, but until you've won it, the idea that it's a guarantee to be back is a lot harder to wrap your head around. So certainly keep an eye on sort of the larger picture impact of these two franchises.
I feel with the 49ers, there's a couple of narratives, and they might have shed them already during the postseason, but Kyle Shanahan playing from behind, couldn't win in the fourth quarter. He's done that twice now.
Yep, that helps.
Brock Purdy being a little uneven, but then coming from behind and winning those games too, with game-winning drives against the Packers and Detroit, 24/7. You think overcoming those, obstacles prepares them for a Super Bowl against a very good Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Totally, it does. And, obviously it's not ideal to fall behind early in the game, but I do think there's less fear factor for the 49ers if they do fall behind again in the Super Bowl. They kind of understand that's that you have to overcome those challenges in order to prove that you can prove to yourself you can do it again and again. And then Brock Purdy, guys, it's so funny to me. It's is he a game manager? Is he not? Here's what I know. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like stating the obvious here, but it's how many quarterbacks have played in the Super Bowl? This is Super Bowl 58?
Yeah.
So if I do my math correctly, that means that these two teams will be the 115th and 16th teams to ever play in the Super Bowl. And of course, a lot of those have been occupied by the same quarterbacks, right? Mahomes is in his fourth already. And, Brady played in 10, Peyton Manning played in 4. You just kind of do the math, and it's I don't know exactly how many number of starting quarterbacks have ever played in the Super Bowl, but the answer is probably around 70 or so. That's rare air for Brock Purdy. So whether he's a game manager or not, on Sunday he might be a Super Bowl champion. And as we know, oftentimes Super Bowl champion, the quarterback is a Super Bowl MVP. So I'm a big proponent of the idea that what makes sports great is it's not what you do, or it's not how you get there, but it's what you do when you get there. And in the case of Brock Purdy, the minute he showed up at the 49ers facility, yes, he was the last pick. He was Mr. Irrelevant, but in the same way that if a second-round pick struggles, if a seventh-round pick struggles, they could be out the door in a year. So I have a lot of admiration for the fact that Brock has been undeterred and kind of continued to find his way.
Field, when you look at the landscape, the NFL has really changed. It kind of looks like we're going towards the ex-players kind of being the head coaches. But let me get from one point of view, Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers.
Yeah.
Just what do you think of the hire, and what do you think about the whole dynamic now around? I mean, everybody had said before they're cheap, they're not going to go get the top guy. They end up getting Jim Harbaugh. Just how do you think that changes that franchise, and obviously for Justin Herbert as well?
Yeah, I mean, the NFL in general, by the way, is better with more Harbaughs in it, right? And Jim is an all-time great character and certainly one of the great winners in football. If you go back, it's amazing. Someone shared this with me a while back, and I will not forget it ever going forward. As the University of San Diego has had 2 seasons in which they've won at least 11 games. Both of those, Jim Harbaugh, the head coach there. So the success before he got there was not the same. The success after he left, not the same. You think about the run in San Francisco, obviously a disappointing end, but playing in the Super Bowl against his brother and being a consistent NFC champion contender, that's indisputable. Michigan, one of the great teams ever in the history of the sport this past season, dominant from start to finish. So I hate to sound like a cliche, but Jim is a proven winner. He's a program builder, and there's something very infectious about the way that he cares about the team and cares about the process, cares about the history of the sport. So I'm excited for him. I'm excited for the Chargers. Justin is like such a dramatic advantage for anybody that's the head coach. So I'm sure Jim, when he was going through the various factors that were going to contribute to whether he took a job in the NFL, that was probably as forceful of a factor as there was for any franchise. Because if you look at the 8 jobs that were available this offseason, Justin was amongst the very best players on any of those rosters. I'd have to jog my memory quickly about some of the other openings, but I can't imagine there was a better coach quarterback opportunity than in LA. And with the 5th pick in the draft as well, Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh have a chance to get this thing turned around in a hurry here.
And Phil, let me ask you more about the coaching cycle. And like you mentioned, a lot of people like the Jim Harbaugh, hiring with the Chargers. But is there one that you like, besides that one, and then maybe another one that you're a little more kind of, wondering about?
One that I like. Let's see. Mike Macdonald in Seattle should be a really nice fit there. Obviously did an amazing job this past season as the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. Slipped there, but now a head coach with the Seahawks. And then, guys, a lot of questions to answer in New England. Yeah, I don't care what you think about the percentage that Belichick is responsible vis-a-vis Brady. I think it's kind of simple-minded to not think that both of them are incredibly important. And this, if it were just a quarterback league, we wouldn't bother hiring coaches for like Jim Harbaugh for probably $15+ million a year. It's a super green staff right now. I mean, they got a first-time defensive coordinator, first-time special teams coordinator, no general manager, first-time play caller on offense, first-time head coach. The guy who's young, he's like my age, 35, 36. Like it's a lot of questions to answer there in New England. It's not that I don't like it. It's just it's a lot of questions to figure out, and I think there is a real danger in not having Bill Belichick around anymore.
Field, there was a lot of criticism that Sean McVay received before last season. Everybody's like, can he rebuild a team? Does he want to be here?
Yeah.
Does he want to go to the booth? He has a kid on the way. All that stuff. But just talk about the job that you felt like he did. I mean, especially with Puka Nacua, they relied on a lot of young guys to mature quickly and to play fast, and it really feels like they're building something really interesting with the Rams.
2 lessons learned from this past year. One, it's a team sport, right? I mean, again, a reminder, shouldn't be a lesson, but just when people just hammer you over the head where it's the quarterback or nothing. Of course, the quarterback impacts the position, impacts the team more than any other position in all of sports. At the same time, it's a team sport. I mean, think about the contributors the Rams had this past year. It kind of came out of nowhere, right? And the defense was a bunch of players that other than Aaron Donald were like complete mysteries, right? Second lesson was, I'm doing a lot of draft work now at ESPN. And the way that it works is people want to know, all right, the Chargers have the 5th pick in the draft. Who's the 5th best player that's available? It didn't work like that, right? At the top of the draft, they're going to be guys that are going to be good no matter where they go. That's just the expectation. If Marvin Harrison got dropped into any of the 32 franchises, Marvin Harrison Jr., he should be a good player. But football is about finding things that fit. I mean, Puka Nacua, if he gets dropped somewhere else, I don't know if he has this record-setting season. So the Rams, I think, get so much credit. Sean McVay, Les Snead, the staff are both of them. Let's start with this fundamental premise. What does a guy do well? And let's maximize that. If you can do that, you got a chance. If you're going to ignore what the guy does well and try to jam a square peg into a round hole, you're going to be in trouble.
Phil, before we let you go, maybe a little random question here.
Okay.
You're covering fantasy football. You're breaking news too at the same time. For reporters that want to get into this field, and because you seem so even keeled to it, when it's breaking news time, it's like people are really stressed out. You see people on their phone all the time, and they can't balance fantasy football. but somehow you got the knack to get both sides. How do you do it?
Oh man! First of all, there was an old Bill Parcells line that I really like. He used to say, "The more you can do, the more you can do." That was his. He had a way with words. It was always great, right? I would say that I love football. Like I feel like I've got some. Hopefully, I have I hope Jim Harbaugh is I consider him an influence, right? Like he loves football. I love football, and so I was doing an interview a little while ago with one of the college stations that's out here, and I think they were trying to figure out the work-life balance there. Like, what are your hobbies? And I got 2 young kids, so my time is mostly dedicated to them. But what I told them was I just love football, man. It keeps me really busy in a good way. And if I weren't working in football, I know that I would be following it very closely as well. So I'd say the biggest thing is I try to find the context and the why behind stuff, and that usually leads me to that balance of what does it mean for fantasy football? What does it mean for breaking news? What does it mean for the draft? What does it mean just for the league at large? So I appreciate you saying that, and it beats working what we do, right?
Yeah. Last one for me.
Okay.
I know you're a WWE guy. Is it a work? Are they trying to get Cody over on that Daniel Bryan side where everybody because I feel I'm a huge WWE guy. If I wasn't doing this, that's where I'd love to be. I'd love to do storylines and
both.
all that stuff. Yeah, or both. Yeah, there you go. But I feel like it's kind of a work. What do you think happens leading up to WrestleMania? Do you really think it's going to be Roman against The Rock, or is there going to be a twist?
I really think it's going to be Roman against The Rock, because I just think that as much as this Cody run has been, it's unbelievable. It's unparalleled, right? There's something about The Rock that I think it's almost like sacred ground to step on if you bring him in just to kind of be like a conduit to a bigger plan. That being said, what I do know is that oftentimes, and you mentioned the Daniel Bryan example, is that what oftentimes happens is that once you think the WWE is headed for the apocalyptic result, they find a way to end up on the top, right? Daniel Bryan was a great example of that. The hard part for Cody is that 12 months is a long time. If you got to burn this candle for 12 more months, maybe it kind of it pushes its own self forward. Maybe
he would have to
Roman
turn heel.
Retains. Yeah, but maybe Roman retains and then breaks breaks Hogan's record. And next thing you know, it's that kind of takes the audience's attention for a little bit. But I got to tell you, this one's going to be fascinating to watch. This is my favorite time of the year for WWE, because obviously we're in kind of I would call the playoffs of the WWE. In a great couple of months ahead, but boy, in some ways I envy Triple H. In some ways, probably a lot of ways I envy him. In some ways I don't, and right now it's probably not one where this is one where I don't envy him.
Do you acknowledge your tribal chief?
I got to be honest with you, I do. I have a ton of respect for him. My favorite wrestler by a million miles is Seth Rollins.
Oh wow,
love him, loved him so he is my shield. He is my go-to forever. So I am a Seth freaking Rollins stan. So not that you have to like one or the other, but of the current champions and of the guys that I would consider sort of the top of the heap in the WWE, he is definitely my guy. And there's something to be said. I'm not a lot of stuff in life that happens, but what I recall growing up and thinking so highly of wrestlers was the guys that every night, whether you're in Las Vegas for a pay-per-view, or if you're on the road in Omaha for a Saturday night house show. And I think that's what Seth kind of defines. That guy's a freaking workhorse.
Well, we acknowledge Field Yates. Thank you so much for jumping on the show.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you.
Of course.